He was not a general, nor a soldier. He never pulled a trigger on the battlefield, yet his words and signatures helped unleash a war that would kill over 70 million people. Joachim von Ribbentrop, the man who once sold champagne in London, would rise to become Hitler's foreign minister, the face of Nazi diplomacy, and one of the architects of Europe's destruction. But how did a failed businessman become the diplomatic face of the Third Reich? And how did his ambition, arrogance, and blind loyalty to Hitler lead him from the glittering halls of diplomacy to the gallows at Nuremberg? This is the story of Joachim von Ribbentrop, the man who tried to sell peace while preparing for war. Joachim von Ribbentrop was born on April 30th, 1893, in Wesel, Germany, into a middle-class Prussian family with military traditions but modest means. His father was an army officer, and from a young age, Joachim absorbed both a sense of elitism and a craving for status. But unlike many who sought honor through command, Ribbentrop's ambitions were social. He wanted power not on the battlefield, but in the drawing room, among Europe's elite, wearing fine suits instead of uniforms. When the First World War erupted, Ribbentrop joined the cavalry and later transferred to a staff position. He served with competence but never distinction. After the war, he drifted into business, trying to find a way to restore both his fortune and his place in a crumbling Germany. He found work abroad, spending time in Canada, where he learned English and gained an appreciation for British manners, something that would later influence his self-image. By the 1920s, Ribbentrop was living in Berlin and had married into wealth. His wife, Anneliese Henkel, was the daughter of a champagne magnate, giving him access to money and social standing. Using these connections, he entered the world of trade and diplomacy, representing German wine and champagne houses abroad. It was a modest success, but it fed his vanity. He began styling himself as von Ribbentrop, even though the von, a mark of nobility, had been legally removed from his family name. It was the first of many illusions he would carefully craft. In 1932, he met Adolf Hitler. That single meeting would define the rest of his life. Ribbentrop was instantly captivated by Hitler's charisma and vision. He was impressed by the man's certainty, the sense that Germany could rise again. To Hitler, Ribbentrop seemed cultured, worldly, and useful. Here was a man who spoke fluent English and French, who had mingled with elites in London and Paris. For a movement still seen as provincial and thuggish, Ribbentrop offered a veneer of sophistication. Within months, Ribbentrop became an unofficial advisor on foreign affairs to the Nazi Party. He was not a seasoned diplomat, but his eagerness to serve and his blind devotion to Hitler earned him trust. When the Nazis seized power in 1933, Ribbentrop's rise was rapid. He helped orchestrate high-profile meetings with foreign dignitaries and established the Dienststelle Ribbentrop, a special foreign policy bureau that competed directly with the official foreign ministry. He was cunning in politics, but not respected. Professional diplomats in Berlin considered him an arrogant amateur, a man with little understanding of subtlety or strategy. Yet in Hitler's eyes, Ribbentrop's loyalty outweighed his lack of skill. Hitler admired Ribbentrop's ability to echo his ideas without hesitation and to dress them in diplomatic language. In 1936, Ribbentrop was sent to London as Germany's ambassador to the United Kingdom. His mission was crucial: to improve relations with Britain and convince them to tolerate Germany's growing expansion. But his arrogance and tone deafness alienated almost everyone he met. He lectured senior British officials, misunderstood their culture, and carried himself with pompous superiority. During a royal reception, Ribbentrop infamously performed the Nazi salute before King George VI, an act that caused outrage in British society. His diplomacy was so clumsy that even the German embassy staff grew to despise him. British politicians saw through his facade, describing him as vain, ignorant, and dangerously delusional. When he returned to Berlin in 1938, Hitler nevertheless rewarded him. He replaced Konstantin von Neurath as foreign minister. For Ribbentrop, it was the ultimate vindication, proof that obedience to Hitler could eclipse merit or experience. For Germany, it marked the end of pragmatic diplomacy. Under Ribbentrop, the foreign ministry became a tool of Hitler's will, a propaganda machine in a suit. His first major test came that same year. Germany annexed Austria in the Anschluss, and Ribbentrop's task was to sell it as a peaceful unification to the world. He did so with practiced calm, claiming Austria had joined Germany voluntarily, while Nazi troops filled Vienna's streets. But Ribbentrop's greatest act of deceit, and his greatest triumph, came in August 1939. In a move that stunned the world, he flew to Moscow to sign the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. For years, Nazi propaganda had vilified the Soviet Union as Germany's mortal enemy. Yet now, Ribbentrop stood beside Stalin's foreign minister Vyacheslav Molotov, smiling for the cameras as the two men signed a pact of non-aggression, and in secret agreed to divide Eastern Europe between them. The ink had barely dried when Ribbentrop telephoned Hitler with the news. "The Führer is overjoyed," he reported. And indeed, Hitler was. The pact cleared the way for the invasion of Poland without fear of Soviet interference. On September 1st, 1939, German forces crossed the Polish border. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war. Ribbentrop's diplomacy had not prevented war. It had made it possible. As the conflict spread, Ribbentrop became one of Hitler's closest advisors. He attended every major conference, negotiated alliances with Italy and Japan, and pressured occupied nations to join the Axis. Yet beneath the facade of confidence, Ribbentrop was increasingly isolated and despised. Even among Nazi officials, he was known for his arrogance and vanity. Goering called him a little champagne salesman. Goebbels mocked his pretensions. Generals dismissed him as delusional. Still, he clung to Hitler's trust, often feeding him with reports that reflected what Hitler wanted to hear, not what was true. He was among those who told Hitler that Britain would make peace after the fall of France. When that peace never came, Ribbentrop insisted that the British Empire would collapse soon anyway. His misjudgments contributed to a series of catastrophic decisions. After Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, Ribbentrop's influence began to wane. Real power shifted to the military and to figures like Himmler and Goebbels. The Foreign Ministry became an administrative arm of occupation, helping to justify deportations, coordinate with collaborators, and oversee the political dimensions of genocide. Ribbentrop's ministry was directly complicit in the Holocaust. Diplomatic cables and memoranda show that he was aware of the mass killings of Jews and other targeted groups. He ensured that Germany's allies cooperated in deportations. In occupied France, his representatives worked closely with the SS to pressure the Vichy government into handing over Jews for transport to Auschwitz. Ribbentrop signed off on many of these communications personally. He never visited a concentration camp, but his signature appeared on countless documents that made them possible. Like many Nazi officials, he saw genocide not as horror, but as policy, a logistical matter, a Jewish question, to be solved in diplomatic terms. By 1943, the war was turning against Germany. Defeat in Stalingrad shattered the myth of invincibility. Italy surrendered. The Allies advanced on all fronts. Ribbentrop, ever loyal, insisted that victory was still possible. He continued to send Hitler optimistic reports, assuring him that Japan might soon open a second front against the Soviets, or that Britain was close to collapse. These fantasies only deepened Hitler's isolation. As the Reich crumbled in 1945, Ribbentrop's world collapsed with it. His foreign ministry lay in ruins, his embassies seized, his diplomatic corps scattered. He fled Berlin in the war's final weeks, wandering through northern Germany in disguise. When Allied troops captured him near Hamburg, he was carrying a fake passport and still insisting that he could negotiate peace. Even in defeat, he refused to see reality. At Nuremberg, Ribbentrop was charged with crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. The prosecution presented a damning record: the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, the orchestration of aggressive war, and his role in the deportation of Jews. Ribbentrop, facing death, remained unrepentant. He argued that he had merely followed orders, that he had tried to preserve peace, that Hitler alone bore responsibility. The tribunal saw through his defense. The judges described him as the prime mover in Germany's foreign policy, and utterly devoid of scruple or moral principle. He was sentenced to death. On the night of October 16, 1946, Joachim von Ribbentrop was led to the gallows. His last words were defiant. "My last wish is that Germany may recover her unity, and that understanding may be reached between East and West. I wish peace to the world." Then the trapdoor opened. The champagne salesman who had tried to play diplomat was gone, leaving behind a legacy of arrogance, deceit, and ruin. His story is a chilling reminder that wars are not only fought by generals and soldiers. Sometimes they are prepared by men in suits, with pens instead of guns, and lies instead of bullets. Joachim von Ribbentrop's life is a study in the corruption of ambition, of how vanity and obedience can destroy entire nations when placed in the service of tyranny. He wanted to be seen as a statesman, a peacemaker, a man of influence. In the end, he became something far darker, a salesman of death disguised as a diplomat. He believed that loyalty to one man was loyalty to Germany. History proved otherwise. What do you think? Was Ribbentrop simply a deluded follower, or one of the true masterminds behind Nazi aggression? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into the hidden corners of World War II history. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.